So we're going to do a really quick conversation about how to make our design thinking a little bit more concrete. So I'm just going to share my screen and call up this fantastic worksheet that we've been working on through our face-to-face at the York School way back a couple of weeks ago. So one of the things that we did was we worked through this whole idea of thinking and sharing and getting different ideas around the action plan. And it was structured around this idea: what problem, challenge, or opportunity are you currently experiencing in your classroom? And one of the things which I really like is that that idea of currently experienced, because we know that teaching is, ebbs and flows, and it really depends on who is in the room and all that other stuff that they bring in with them. And so when we think about design thinking, we're always thinking about that idea of iteration and how can we enhance that for our students, and how can we enhance that for ourselves as well. So in terms of reflecting on the day, what we want to do is get you to think about what would you stop, start, or continue. This idea is how can we as individuals start to reflect effectively and meaningfully throughout the day, or throughout our unit, or throughout the year on the things that we're doing. And that's one of the pieces of design thinking, always trying to get that next step ahead. So as I go through this really quick hangout, I want you to consider what are some things that you're going to stop doing, what are the things you're going to start doing, and maybe what are the most important things, what are you going to continue to do. So let's look at what was essentially our page number 1. And this is where we came up with that problem, challenge, or question that's currently existing in our classroom. And so we asked you to reflect as a teacher, and then we asked you to empathize with your students. And then we got a third point of view, right? Your students, and then a third point of view. Does it make sense to them? Did it work in terms of how you articulated it? We reframe and we rewrite it. We worked on the needs assessment, and then we came up with radical ideas in our ideate phase using Crazy Eights. And then we went one step further. We got some feedback and went in 4 new different ways to meet this challenge or problem or opportunity. And we created what might arguably be the most difficult sentence some of us have ever written. How might we? And we got some great results. Just check out Leslie Macbeth's post, Claire Hazard's post about how difficult this was and how liberating it was as well to do that. And then we start to build, and this is what I want to talk about: iterate and build, experimentation, evolution. So how do we make that design thinking a little bit more concrete? There's only one way to do it. It's to try it out and reflect on it and tweak it. And so it could reflect a bunch of different ways, or it could be reflected, in a bunch of different ways, either in your blog, in Twitter, perhaps on a Google Plus post. So how do we do this? And the important thing here is to just make sure that you're trying. Just make sure that you're trying to get out there in your classroom and that you're trying to make these things happen. So let's take an example. One of the action plans that's out there is how do we better assess our students outside of unit tests, outside of an essay, outside of a presentation, outside of a skit. How can we continue to assess our students? And that's really boring on the idea of assessment for learning, how it crosses over into assessment of learning. Excuse me. And so what we want to do is we want to just try that out. And so I put it this way. Get rid of the unit test. Take a look at what that unit test is meant to accomplish, what the purpose of it is, and then break that down and ask yourself, how can my students reflect this learning in 3 different ways: observation, conversation, and product. So you take that unit test, or you take that essay, and you take the success criteria and you develop your own rubric, and you call it your conversation rubric. And instead of simply writing down, taking a rubric per student, you can actually just write in on one rubric the student and where they are at that level. And then you can ask them, how do you think you did? And then you can ask them, write or reflect on how you think you did, or write or reflect on what you did. And so you've broken down this idea of a unit test, but you've also changed the way that students are dealing with their learning and demonstrating their learning. And I think that's a radical shift. And I think it's important that we've just tried it. So then I ask the question, what have I risked? I've risked a unit test. I've risked that traditional, reliable, or what I think is reliable, but more often it's more traditional way of actually assessing my students. And that's it. You haven't sacrificed assessment. You haven't gotten rid of assessment. You're just trying something different. And then what I suggest you do is you take the results and make sure it's low stakes, right? Make sure it's a low, maybe instead of a unit test, it's a quiz, or maybe instead of an essay, it's a paragraph. But you take those results and you post them on your blog. And you say, this is what I've done. Is anyone else doing this? What's your feedback on this? What have I done really well? What have I not done well? What am I missing? And what should I continue to do well in order to make this happen? And there you're getting some feedback. And from there you can iterate, and from there you can work further on exploring that action plan. So as we move forward with our action plan, I want to try and make sure that you feel empowered to have that creative confidence, right? These are the mindsets of design thinking. Have that creative confidence to design and change the way that we work, because you can be, and you are, as we learned in the last face-to-face, a designer. We want you to also embrace ambiguity. What does it mean to get rid of an assessment of learning and change it? I've assessed in this way all the time and it works, but embrace that ambiguity by asking the question, who does it work for? How does it work? And then breaking that down as well. So just some ideas about making your design thinking a little bit more concrete, and hopefully this has sparked some sort of creative confidence in you and some sort of initiative as well. So thank you so much for all the great work that you're doing and posting on your blogs, and I look forward to reading more of them and hopefully getting some feedback on this Hangout as well. Thanks.